All right, let's see. I do need to shuffle a few things around and make sure that we're actually going. Let's see, that's this browser over here. Oh, actually, we're not going because I will need to... Oh, we are. Oh, wow, that's weird. How did it hook up? Usually I have to come click that. Okay, so we are good there. We're good there. Restream shows that we're on. Which it looks like shows that we're on, so I think we are on. Let me... live playback. The YouTube preview is a little bit off, but I think we are live there. Let me get back to the chat. Phone me guys live. Yes, you're live. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the heads up there. Yeah, this one was a bit different for me. I don't normally do the scheduling to make the link ahead of time, so this was my first time on my own account actually linking that up. So I'm glad I did that correctly, because I wasn't actually sure how that goes. So how's it going? Good morning and welcome, Dexter, DJ Devin, Clever. Appreciate the heads up there and the kind words from Podbot as well. Let me do this. Oh wait, that's not actually the one that's in the stream though, and that one's already turned on that way. Okay. Put this down here because we'll use that later. Let me also get it to where we can see the chat, and then I think we are ready to go. So welcome, everybody. Happy CircuitPython Day. For anybody that might be new, if you haven't caught any of my streams before, my name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. This is a special edition of the stream. I normally stream on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time, which I will be back tomorrow streaming more work on this project. So if you get to watching this stream and you want to see where it goes from here, the next time you have a chance to do that is going to be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. And I will typically just post up links in the live broadcast chat when I get going for that, same way I did for this one. So anybody who wants to see more, feel free to tune in tomorrow and you can see the continuation of this. So first things first, let's take care of a couple of the high-level things. Obviously, today is CircuitPython Day, so happy CircuitPython Day to everybody. Anybody who would like to celebrate by getting yourself some new toys from the Adafruit store at adafruit.com, you can use the special code, which I have pasted in the search box here so that I would have it. CircuitPy Day, that will get you, I think it is 10% off, I believe I saw in the chat earlier, although I'm not 100% positive on the exact discount. But I do know if you use that code when you check out, there is some kind of discount for CircuitPython Day. So thank you to Adafruit for, of course, sponsoring the CircuitPython project and CircuitPython Day and making that code available for anybody who wants to pick up some goodies today. Save you a little money on that. So thanks to all those folks. Super quick introduction, and then I'm going to jump right in because we're only going for an hour today, and then we've got coming up next, that was the other tab I had, which was here. Next, we have got Maker Melissa is going to be working on Matrix Portal message board about an hour from now. So I will get jumped in pretty quick here and then kind of just get going, get down in the weeds, so to speak. So anybody who's watching, Discord chat is visible. I think YouTube is live but is silent. Interesting. Maybe try refreshing or double check the that you're not having mute on or anything like that. OBS on my side shows audio. I have a YouTube preview somewhere, but it's usually muted. If I need to double check the audio on YouTube on my side, I can try to do that, but I would say try refreshing first and foremost. I don't know. I think we've got audio. Test, hello. Over in the chat there, which is also on the screen, I think. Let's double check that part of it in case you're talking about the chat. Okay. I hear you fine. Okay. Yeah. No, who was that? Somebody. Oh, the chat. Okay, I gotcha. I'm with you. So audio's okay. Yep. Awesome. I appreciate the heads up on that, folks. That's obviously one of the worst nightmares, is you're like talking and talking and talking and the thing actually is muted. So appreciate the heads up on all of that. So I wanted to start just with a very, very, very brief, I guess, quick story about kind of how I got into CircuitPython. So in 2019 for Hackaday SuperCon, I was at Hackaday SuperCon for 2019, and at SuperCon, one of the things that came in the goodie bag that everybody got was a Adafruit Edge badge, which is a little handheld device. It's kind of based on the Pi badge, but this one is a little bit different because it has the speaker. And the thing about it was it could run some like machine learning, I'm going to say algorithms, but I don't know if that's the technically correct term or whatever. It could do some sort of TensorFlow light stuff on it. But the thing that hooked me on this device is the game form factor. It's kind of like a little, not quite a Game Boy or whatever, but it's kind of like a little Game Gear. And I got this device at, like I said, Hackaday SuperCon 2019, and the whole weekend I was there, I was kind of tinkering away on this thing, and then probably for the next like month or two, when I got home, I was tinkering away on this thing, building this game here, which I called Blinka's Breakout, which was a clone of Chip's Challenge. For folks that don't know, there's a Wikipedia here if you want to look it up. Chip's Challenge is a game that came out for the Atari Lynx, and then it was also included in some versions of Microsoft. I don't know if it was in the base Windows or if you had to buy these entertainment packs, or I don't know exactly how it got packaged in. What I do know is that at some point along the way, my sort of family computer had this game on it when I was a child. So I played this game a little bit on there, and I always had a fun time with it. So when I first received this device, that I got to talk in with somebody else there at SuperCon, and we were kind of, reminiscing about that game, and I was like, let me see if I can make a version of that game. And that's what this was. This was a simplified version of Chip's Challenge. I did swap out some of the sprites and stuff, right? Like we had Blinka, we had Adabot, rather than the Chip's Challenge sprites and some things like that, but it implemented kind of a basic amount of functionality from that game. And what I would like to do now is build a new version of this that is kind of leveled up, right? This was the end of 2019. I have learned loads and loads and loads about CircuitPython, about Display.io, about all sorts of stuff. So I think I'm in a much better kind of, I'm in a good position to kind of sit down and remake this and make it different and better in some ways. One of the main ways I want to make it better is the original version of this, the maps were comma-separated value files. So they were basically spreadsheets, right? You could load up your spreadsheet software. I think there's maybe pictures in here somewhere. No, not quite. Okay. Maybe further down or something. I don't want to dig too far into this one because I do want to jump into the code of the new one. But your maps were comma-separated, and what I want to do for the new one is I'm integrating it with this video game level editor called Tiled. This is an open source project that you can download online, and it's a video game, map editor. So this version is going to use maps that come from this, and there's also going to be, lots of upgrades in kind of the way that it functions and stuff like that. So that is kind of the introduction to the project. I wanted to circle back around and do another version of Chip's Challenge just because this was really like the first kind of major project that really hooked me into the CircuitPython world. I had used it a little bit before this for some work stuff. I had played with a Circuit Playground Express a little bit before this, but only kind of very basic stuff. I didn't really take the full plunge all the way yet. And playing with this device, I think, really did get me interested enough to actually join the community and get involved and start developing and doing all the stuff that I have come to do since. So, this game kind of will always hold a special place in my heart, so to speak, for that reason, just because it was the thing that kind of hooked me into the CircuitPython world. So the new version, the original one, ran on the Edge badge because that's what I had at the time. The new version is running on the Pi portal, and it is using the Qt gamepad stemma connector piece there. So that's our controls. And what I'm going to work on right now is the key and the door. You'll notice we are in a very, very, very basic version of the game right now. We have our character. We have a couple of different things rendered into the map, and then we just have walls around the outside, and that's really all the more that's going on right now. So we have, a fair amount of work to do. I definitely am not going to be finishing the game in the hour or 50 minutes or so that we have for this stream. Like I said, I will be continuing on this tomorrow morning, so you can come and follow along then as well. But the main thing I do want to try to do during the stream is get the key and the door working. So the way that this should work is you should be able to walk over the key, which is going to pick it up and put it into your inventory. Eventually your inventory will be displayed on the screen. We'll see if we make it to there or not for today. We might just keep it in a variable for now, but we'll see how it goes. You want to pick up the key, and then once you have the key, you should be able to walk over the lock, and it should disappear, and it should also take the key out of your inventory, because that's the way the game works. You use a key, and it gets consumed. At least that's my recollection of it. So that is kind of the part that I'm going to work on. The question mark, which I do have over here, does have a little bit of basic functionality built into it so far, and I'm going to kind of copy some of the code from it in order to make the rest of the stuff work and build upwards and outwards from there. Let me catch up on the chat just a quick second here. Yep. Wondered what we're doing. Yep, tiled is the map editor. Blink is breakout. Yep, thanks for the link over there to Hackaday.io. That's the original project, and I'll be posting the code for the new project. It's in kind of a half-working state, so right now it's not so helpful, but what I will do is at the end of the stream, after the stream today, I will get a GitHub posted up with the current code, and then I'll be updating that as I keep working on it. So what we want to do is... well, let me show you how the question mark works first, and then we'll go from there. So right now, I need to probably do kind of a split screen action because there is nothing visual to see yet, but it does show up in the prints down here. So I have got PyCharm loaded up, ready to go. We've got our code. On the bottom half, I've got TO open. So everything showing down here is being printed on the device. This is the serial console that you would ordinarily see like inside Mu if that's what you were using. So I do have it set up so that I can use the joystick here, move the character around, and when I go onto the question mark, it will print this message here that says hello Chips Challenge World, and that message comes from inside the map. We have a property on the entity layer over here called QData, and QData is set to hello Chips Challenge World. And so that is what it prints there. So in the original game, each level had a question mark. You could run on top of the question mark, and it would kind of like give you a little bit of information or a hint about the level. So we have that mechanism working. The way that that works is while the game is running inside of code.py, we have instantiated a my game, which is a Chips Challenge game, which is over here. So I'll just give you kind of a quick tour of the code real fast here. We've got a Chips Challenge game, which extends a tiled game map, which is a helper class that I've created to work with the maps that can be exported from this tiled software. So tiled game map is a class here that gives you lots of helpful functionality for interacting with maps that were exported from tiled. You kind of give it the raw data, the file that the map is contained inside, and it will load it up and turn it into a tile grid and do all kinds of stuff for you so that you can then interact with it. And it also does extend group, so anybody with Display.io experience will recognize Display.io group here means that once we instantiate a tile map game, we're going to be able to put it on the screen, which is super cool. So we create our game, we have that in here, it's called My Game, we give it the current level we want to play, we give it the camera size, and there's a couple other optional things which we haven't done yet, but there are a few more. We can just add that to the main group, which we have already called display show on, and that will render our game into the world. In order for handling movement, we need a couple of things. We need to be calling game tick, first of all, in order to make sure that our functionality works. Things like when the player runs into the question mark or when the player runs into the key, those kind of things are functionality. Those are going to happen inside of tick functions. 311 Chips Challenge, red key for days, nice. Never saw the original one. Yeah, I never played on Atari either. Windows at some point. I want to say Windows 95 is probably what we had at my house when I played this, but I'm not positive. That was my introduction to it, and I definitely look back fondly on it. I didn't play it a huge amount, but I had fun with what I did play. So, and I remembered. It always stuck with me. So we're going to call tick. That's going to make our game functionality work. Inside of there, it's going to go and call tick on our player class, and it's going to call tick on all of the things that are called entity classes. So the entities are anything that you can interact with beyond just walking into or not being allowed to walk into. So, for instance, a wall, like we have a wall all the way around the outside here. The wall is not an entity. But the player, which is moving around, the player is an entity, as well as the question mark is also an entity. And so inside my game tick, it's going to call tick on all the entities as well. That way they can define their own behavior that happens, every iteration inside the game. The rest of this stuff is reading the joystick on the QD gamepad. So we're setting up some stuff to analog read it. Once we get the values, if they moved the joystick to the left, we're going to update the player's position as long as they're actually allowed to move there. Same thing for right. We just move the opposite direction as well as down and up, obviously, moving up and down like that. And we do have some print statements for the rest of these buttons, but that's it. They don't actually do anything else yet. So right now we're very basic. We can just move the player around. We're calling game tick, which means that inside of there, it's going to be calling tick on our entities, which is where we're going to hook up all of our special functionality. So first thing we want to do is get going with the game tick inside of the key, because right now it doesn't have anything. I'm pretty sure we have the blue key right here. Yeah, inside game tick, I have nothing, just pass. So what we want to do is something a little bit more like the question mark. So inside question mark, we have if self, which is the question mark in this case. If the question mark is colliding with the player entity, then we have some special behavior we want to do. In the case of the question mark, we are looking up the Q data, we're printing it out. In the case of the blue key, we're going to do something different. How's it going, Jose? How do I keep track of the player position? Really good question, by the way. Thanks for the reminder. Anybody who has any questions or anything like that, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything I can about how it works and stuff like that. So I have player lock, which is a variable that is on the tiled map game. The player lock is a dictionary with an X and a Y value. The X and the Y value represent the X and the Y coordinates in tiles, not in pixels, but in tiles. Of the player entity. The helper class, the tiled map game helper class, also does support the idea of a cursor, where you could move a cursor around and select certain tiles. This game doesn't use the cursor, so we have use cursor false. But the cursor actually works a similar way where we store the location like that. And then the one other bit that goes into it is we also have a function called update player location or something like that. Yeah, update player location right here. This will go and take the actual tile grid, the display.io tile grid that represents the player, and it will move it to the correct location on the display based on the X and Y values in the player lock. So whenever you want to move the player, what you do is you change the values inside player lock, just like this right here. So he's got X plus equals 1 or minus equals 1. And then we call update player location, which will then, kind of refresh the actual display. If you could do us Alex the Kid, I possibly never stop playing. So hard with 3 lives, same level, helicopters, bicycles. I'm not familiar with that one, Alex the Kid. I'll have to look that up. Number 2 came with a built-in Master System. I started on TRS 80 with 4K of RAM. Nice. Started on DOS, IBM 311. I started playing. Nice. Okay. So on our key, and I had this broken up into a few layers. I have my code.py file. That's obviously the file that's directly in the root of the microcontroller. That's what gets executed by CircuitPython. I have in cclib, that's short for Chips Challenge lib. This is where I have the custom classes specific to this game. So I have Chips Challenge game. I have all of my entities, the blue key, the blue lock, the question mark. Those are the only entities right now. Those are inside of here, and then we have, of course, tiled map game. This is the base helper class tiled map game, and then I also do have entity, which is in its own file, and it's a base class for all of the entities. And then the other special, not really special, but the other important bit is the map, which is inside of a JSON file right here, and this JSON file got exported by tiled. If we do Control-Shift-E, we can export our map as a JSON file. That's also accessible up here. File export as, you can export it as JSON, which is what we then import into our CircuitPython code. On our blue key, let's get back there. Blue key, we want to have a game tick. So we want to say if self, that's the blue key now, since we're inside of it instead of the question mark. We did duplicate this. Let's get rid of one level of that. If we are colliding, the blue key, if it's colliding with the player entity, we don't care about showing the queue data anymore, so that's not going to be what we do. What we want to do is two things. We want to add the blue key, add a blue key to the player's inventory, which means if they had no blue keys, they're now going to have one. If they had one blue key, they're now going to have two, n plus one, whatever they had. We want to add it to the inventory. We also want to remove it from the map. So let's work on adding it to the inventory first. And you can't add anything to an inventory if you don't have an inventory. And right now, I do not have an inventory. So I'm going to come on into my tiled map game. Actually, I'm going to come on into my Chips Challenge game, the one that extends the tiled map game. Inside of my init, I'm going to add a inventory, self.inventory. That's going to be a dictionary. And that dictionary is going to contain things like... it's going to have the item name, like blue key, and then it's going to have a number for how many we have. If we have 0, then it's just not going to be in the dictionary. If we have 1, then it's going to say 1. If we have 2, it's going to say 2, so on and so forth. We are not going to start with anything in the inventory, though, so we have nothing to start with. Now that we have an actual inventory inside of our game tick, we get past the game object, which means we can access the inventory we just created. We're not doing anything with queue data showing. We don't need that anymore. How are you seeding the randomizer to get the best possible results? Right now, nothing is random, so there is no randomness in this game as of right now, so I don't have a random number generator or any kind of seed or anything like that. To the best of my recollection, there was nothing really random. Everything that I can recall from the game. Now, mind you, I did not play like all the way through the entire game, so it's possible some of the top level stuff maybe is different, but the stuff that I recall, everything was pretty formulaic. Like there's a couple monsters, there's a couple other obstacles and things, but everything moves with a predictable... Everything behaves predictably, let's say. I don't think there is randomness in the behavior of anything that I can recall. So if we are colliding, if the key and the player are colliding, we want to say GameObject.inventory. Actually, we need to check if we have the blue key or not. So we know that we are the blue key because this is the blue key inventory, not inventory, the entity. We don't need to worry about checking which thing it is, but what we can do is say if blue key is in the game.inventory, whoopsie doodles, inventory. If that's in the game inventory, then, oops, not in, is in, there we go. If it's in, I don't know if you have to do this part. I kind of am in the habit of it. So if it's in the inventory, we want to add 1 to it. So inventory, blue key, plus equals 1. If it's not in the inventory, we want to put it in the inventory by setting it to 1. And then we need to remove it from the map. Otherwise, every time we call tick, we will still be colliding with it. And then we'll add another one over and over again, which we don't want. But would be kind of interesting, actually. Why don't we see it? Let's print the inventory here. Just make sure this part's actually working. So it will spam really, really fast. It will, if I understand it correctly, it will just keep adding keys over and over. See, yeah, so we made it up to 12 keys there. And if I stand on top of it, then we just keep adding more and more. So it is adding keys to our inventory. We just need to remove it from the map now. In order to remove it from the map, It'd be really convenient if we knew the tile that it was on, which we know the tile that it's on because it's the same tile that the player is on, and we have the player's location. So in order to move it from the map, what we need to do is we need to edit the data that is inside of this array right here. This array represents the entity layer of the map. The map is broken out into technically 3 layers. However, this game is not really using the background layer, so we can ignore that. We pretty much just have 2 layers. The map layer, which is the floor and the walls, and then the entity layer, which is all the things you can interact with. What we need to do, this is the entity layer right here. What we need to do is we need to remove the key from it. We need to change that 72, which is what the key is, over to a 0. And this is one big long list rather than like XY. So we're going to have to use some like modulus or something like that, and multiplication. We need to figure out the right index inside of here, and then we need to set it to 0. So that is layer 2, which is the entity layer. We're going to say, if we were colliding, we're going to say game object, game object, and then map object. Map object. That will return us the object from this JSON. So on that, we can say layers. Layers. We want layer 2, 0, 1, 2. Data, because that's what we want to modify. Data, and then we need to get the index. Let's calculate the index ahead of time. Player index equals, so that's going to be what? That's going to be, we need the width and the width, width and the height maybe? Do we need the width and the height or just the width? So that's going to be the y value of the player times the width, or the y value minus 1 maybe, times the width, and then plus the x value. So game object dot player lock y. So if y was 0, which it can't be because there's a wall, but let's just pretend if y was 0, yeah, we would have 0, and then we would just take the x by itself. So I think we already have our minus 1. So let's take the y, let's multiply it by the width. I think we have the width somewhere. Yeah, map object dot height. I think we can just use yeah, width right there as well. So times game object dot map object dot width. I don't think we can do dot width, but I'm not sure. I think we need this one, width. So multiply those. I like parentheses. I don't know. I had it drilled into me to use parentheses a lot. Times no, not times, just plus the x. Okay, so that should be the index. So data and then index, player index, and we want to set that to 0. And then what I'm going to do after that is I'm just going to print. I'm just going to print the whole thing again, which is probably going to make it spam. But that's fine for now, because mostly I just want to see if it got removed or not. Just count how many arrays it's over by, and then change the array 23. I would get tedious for every array element, associate array element to name. Potentially. So there are some associations in there already. Okay, so I'm going to Control-C that. Let's look up here. Did that actually work or not? The one thing is the width is not quite right, so Well, was it? It was 72, was it? Let's also, you know what? Let me print the old value and the index actually. Print index, player index. We want the old value, so value, and then we just read that thing from the map. Let's see if we're actually hitting the right tile or not with our calculation there. Possible we're not. Let me also stop spamming the inventory. We know that's working, so we could get rid of that. Either Pylint or Black will complain. Yeah, we're probably not going to be running Pylint or Black too much through this one. This one's definitely a for funsies. Okay, index 112. It says value is 0. My guess is we're off by 1 or something. Index 112. Let me do the one. Let me do the one before it and the one after it, because off by 1 I think is the most likely problem here. So let me just duplicate this. Index +1, +1. Duplicate this again and do -1. I could like actually calculate this with math, but I like guess and check sometimes. I'm more of a programmer than a mathematician, so if I can just make the program do some of the work. Yeah, we hit it. I probably should have put... Oh, actually, we have the index. So 113. I was off by 1. We need to use +1. Okay, very good. Let's take these back out now. Let's go. We know we need a +1 now on the player index there. +1. Uh-oh. Okay, hold up, because that said Y, and that's wrong. Right, yeah, totally, that should be X. All right, so let's put that to X. And let's try that again. Okay, so we are on 113 now. But we do still get 0, which is odd because I thought 113 had returned us before. But we probably have this. Do we have the same error? No, because we're using player index. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so let me bring back our +1 and our -1, which I'd like to undo in order to get, because I'm a little bit lazy on recoding stuff, and I did code it once, but unfortunately I deleted it. And if I undo, then it's going to undo my fix to that, so then we're going to have to redo that. Let's put it back like this. All zeros, 112, 114, all zeros. I wish I could highlight an index right here and just know which index it was. So these are 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 15 times 7. That's 105 plus another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Plus 9. $114, but 114 said 0. Are we off by 2? Seems like wishful thinking at this point, but... That is really weird that it was working when... Did I have that right? Is that actually supposed to be Y? Those are both still zeros. Tiled makes generating map far simpler, but the cursor seems misaligned. The pointer is on the top block highlighted in blue, but the tile... Oh, that's weird. Your tiles might not be set to the right size. Like your key tile and your chip tile, they look like they're down. They look like they're shifted down to me. You might want to double check, like when you create a new project inside Tiled, it asks you for the tile size. You might need to double check that yours matches. It looks to me like maybe it's off by a little bit, and then therefore the tiles don't match up with the grid. Okay, layers 2 data, player index, and we're just getting zeros. Why are we getting zeros? Why are we getting zeros? Okay, do I have any helpers instead of accessing the stuff raw like this just inside the JSON? Maybe we have tile properties, we have get tile property, we have update. Is it movable? Get tile origin. Not exactly sure what that one does. Index. Ah, that should help. Okay, so that's a helper for the index, but... So that means we should be able to go game object dot... What was that? Get index from chords. Game object dot player lock. Maybe print the player's current location on the map and then walk around and make sense of it. We can, yeah, we could do that. We can start double checking our player location as well, maybe. Ah, there we go, okay. My math must have been wrong because now that I'm using the helper function, we're back to good. So index 113 does have a value of 72. We can change that index 113 to 0, which means the key will no longer be there in the data within the map. However, we're gonna need to deal with the entity as well, I think, because I think the entity will stay. Yeah, see, we keep getting the spamming, but if we scroll back, we should be having the first one says 72, and all the next ones say 0. So we did properly update that to 0. The next thing we need to do, though, is we need to remove our entity. And I think to do that, we're going to say game object.entities.remove. I think might work. Remove self. I don't know for sure if that's going to work, but... Well, that's going to remove it from the list. I think that will stop GameTick from getting called, which means it won't keep adding more to our inventory and it won't keep spamming the thing, but it's still going to be visible, I think. It's not going to visibly get rid of the key. We'll need to handle that as well. Yeah, see right there. So we're no longer calling this, which means we're no longer colliding because our entity object is gone, but the problem is it's still visible inside of our display, inside of our group, technically. So when we remove that entity, we also need to do something else. We need to remove it from the group it's in, which is... what group is it in? So we create a new entity. We add it to entities. We say self.append the It's called enemy right here because I was working on a Pac-Man clone before this one. So all the entities were enemies. I need to probably update that. Entity. We're looping over those. We're adding them to self. And self is the tiled game map, which does extend group. So that's why we can do that. So we want to remove from the tiled game map the entity.tileGrid. That should make it no longer visible as well. So game object dot, I think we can do remove here as well, since this overrides group, and group provides the list interface or whatever, has a remove function for us to use, I'm pretty sure. Group.remove, we want the entity, that's going to be self, because we're inside of it, self.tileGrid. Now I think maybe it should do everything we want. It should add it to the inventory. It should get rid of it in the map data. It should get rid of it on the visible. Yeah, that's right. Okay, very good. Okay, so right now we're allowed to walk on the door. I guess kind of stands to reason. But we need a mechanism that fixes that, right? Because we're not... So even if we don't have the key, right now we're allowed to walk on the door. The reason we're allowed to walk on the door is because the door has a custom property called can walk. Can walk is true. Can walk, when it's true, means that you are allowed to walk on it. We need that ultimately because it's not a wall, right? The player eventually is allowed to walk on it, but only if they have a key. We need like another mechanism for, like, you know, not just is it physically capable within the realm of the universe to walk on it or not. We need a secondary, like, is the player currently allowed to walk on it based on the game state? And where do we need to do that? So we need to do that kind of in our logic here where we're deciding to move the player. We need to instruct it that we're not actually, like, is tile movable? That's effectively going to be returning the value of can walk. What we need is, like, another way to check. We need to say maybe conditionally movable, conditionally walkable. Is there currently a live? Not sure what you mean live. Maybe this person's not on this, not watching the stream, and they're asking if there's a live stream potentially. I'm not sure. Let me see here. Yes, we did that. You want to remove it or put it on the side of the screen. So eventually I do want to show the inventory. Eventually I will show the inventory here, but I don't think we're going to make it with the time that we do have left for now. But yes, eventually I will show the inventory over here on the side. Right now I just have an inventory variable, which is where we'll keep it. And then eventually we'll have it update as well. Isn't the door remove once keyed? Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, exactly right. So the way it should work is when we don't have the key, the door should behave like a wall. Like right here, I'm pressing up, but we're not allowed to move. The door should behave like that when we don't have the key. And then when we do have the key, the door should then basically allow us to walk on it, and it should get consumed. You know, consumed. It should disappear. It should remove the key from our inventory, and it should remove the door from the map. But the first step of that is not allowing the user to walk on it. But that's tough. See, we don't have the entity here yet. Is tile movable? How do we want to solve that? So there's a bunch of ways we could do it, certainly. I mean, I could go and I could just make the... I could go and I could just make the door have can walk false, and then we could change can walk false to can walk true if you have the key. I don't think I like updating the can walk, though. I think I want a separate mechanism from can walk. I think I want can walk to stay true, but then some other mechanism will control the key enforcement. Let's see. Oh, I see what you're saying. The player must be moved backwards one space if it's not an unlockable door. So that's one way that we could do it. That's definitely one way we could do it, is like, we could technically, like, you know, for a split second, technically we could allow the player to move to here, but then like inside game tick of the door, for instance, inside game tick of the door, we could say, if the player doesn't have a key, then move them back to the location that they used to be in. But I don't think we currently have the player's previous location. We only have the player's current location right now. Previous player lock, we'll make that another copy. When you call update player location, that is updating the visible location of the player's tile grid based on the player lock value. So at that point, player lock is already updated. And I don't think we want to update previous yet. The time to update previous would be after we move next time. I don't know if I want to track previous, though. I don't think I want to track previous. I think I want to make it to where you don't move on to that tile. I think I want to stop you from moving on to the tile rather than move you back if you didn't have the key. Let me catch up on the chat as well. What if colliding with the door will overwrite the door into a floor? Yeah, eventually that will be the case. Well, it will override the door with 0. Because the door is in a separate layer from the flooring, but the effect will be the same, I think, is what you're saying. Yeah, eventually we'll basically remove the door, which will leave the floor that's underneath it visible, and then we'll be allowed to walk on it. You need a way to detect collision with the wall, so when the player runs into the door, you can test if they have the key. Yeah, definitely. Make it not movable, but then when you get the key, change all the door. I thought about that. I think I don't want to update the properties, though. I think I don't want to change can walk. I don't want to change can walk. I think, what is this? Tile offset 040. Oh, I had that set when fixing something else. Explains my misalignment. Ah, okay. From the tiles earlier, I see. Okay, how about we have another... So right now we have on the game, we have my game is tile movable, which basically returns the can walk state. Let's make another one of these that's a little bit more generic. And in fact, this is more at the chips challenge layer than it is at the tiled map game layer, I think, because this is specific to chips challenge in its inventory and all that stuff. So I think this belongs in here, and I think we have another function we want called maybe check movement or something. There's probably a better name for it, but I also don't want to spend too long thinking about the name. We have about 12 minutes or so left only, and then I will sign off for now. The next stream up is Maker Melissa working on the Matrix Portal. But like I did mention earlier, or if anybody didn't catch the beginning of the stream, I will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. 10 a.m. Central Time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and I'll be working on this again. We could say check move. I'm going to make it kind of the same. I'm actually going to go and copy is tile movable. Copy this. And it needs to take the location. And this is going to get past the coordinates of the next place that we're about to move. So when we press the joystick, it does the +1, -1 to figure out what the next location is. Then it passes that next location to is tile movable. We are going to add another function here that says my game check move. We really need to make a better name for it, so I'll try to do that. But we'll call this function, whatever it ends up being named, that's going to be the next location. And this is where it's going to do the enforcement of the doors. So it's going to say, is that tile a door or not? Which I called a lock, actually, not a door. But that's fine. What do we have for getting entities by map coordinate? Not much, I think, right? We have player lock. Player lock keeps track of the map coordinates of the player, but then we just have entities, which is a list of entity objects, and entity objects don't have their map tile coordinates. They only have their pixel coordinates. Actually, their pixel coordinates are contained inside their tile grid. So they have X, Y, which are the tile grid coordinates, but those are in pixels again, like I said. We really need map coordinates, which is actually pretty tough because inside the entity it doesn't have the map, right? It can't just access the map, so it can't tell where it's at. We're gonna have to tell it where it's at, and then we're gonna have to keep updating where it's at if it were to change. So I'm gonna add a map lock equals we'll just do none by default. Add a map lock. We're gonna say that's inside of init. We're gonna say self.map lock equals the map lock we got passed. That's gonna be another one of those dictionaries like XY. Is this somehow related to Chip's Wits? I played on my Apple Mac in the 90s. That's a good question. I have not ever heard it by that name, but I would not be surprised. Well, let's look here first. Wits, is there this? Chip Wits? Does not show there. Chip Wits. Mac. I don't think so. I don't think it's quite the same game. Bearing in mind, I don't think I ever played this game. I don't recall ever seeing this before, but based on the robotic themes and the programming game that it says here, I'm guessing this game is more like you write the steps and then the robot takes the steps for you. That's a total guess on my part. If that is the case, then it is different than this game that I'm making, because in Chip's Challenge, which is the one I'm making, it's not like a robot that you're programming the steps into. Instead, it's just like live character movement. You press the joystick and it moves the character. If my assumption was incorrect and that game actually works this way as well, then it is possible they are perhaps pretty similar. That's a walkthrough for the first 10 levels. Nice. It's a puzzle game. Yeah. Oh, I think I missed some of the chats here as well. Let me scroll back up. This looks perfect. Far simpler than writing one line of C per tile and rebooting on every test. This puzzle game, excellent panel. Excellent panel, JP. I'll be rewatching. I think maybe Biddy Manic is watching behind live or something. Could you add the entities coordinates as a dictionary? Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to make a dictionary, a map block, and we're going to put that on the entity object, and then we're going to pass it in when we find it. So that's going to be down here where we're creating entities. New entity right here. We create it. We want to add the map location to it, which is would be basically like this. We would have to do this kind of thing here, pretty much. Okay, we are actually doing that already here. So what we want is entity map lock equals x equals x plus x, y equals y plus y. And then we want to actually do this before we create the entity. And then now we can say map. I think I called it map lock. Map lock equals entity map lock. So now we would, on our entity object, we should end up with a dictionary that contains the XY location on the map, which is going to make it easier to be able to check like where we're at to compare with the user and see if we need to make them not allowed to move there. You are correct about CW. Nice, okay. I remember porting Chip's Challenge to the Pocket PC 20 years ago. I had to redo all the graphics because the screen size was so much smaller. I think I still have it on GitHub. Nice, I'll have to take a look at that. To be able to translate pixels. Yep, thank you. Pretty much what we ended up with there. Nice. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Pocket PC. Play on that one. Okay, so we have only a few minutes left. Let's see here. Let's just see if we can print that out maybe. So maybe let's say in the, let's just test it out on the key. Why don't I go back to the key and let's say blue key inside game tick. Let's say also, let's just print the self dot map block, which we just created. Map block, right? Like that. Okay, let's try that. I don't know why this doesn't know about it. We're extending entity, but I don't know. We'll see what it does. If that works, it should just print out the whatever the coordinates to the key are. Uh-oh. Nope. Unexpected keyword. 237. Do I have the wrong target map 120? Load tile grid 237. Map block. So it really doesn't like that, huh? Oh, you know what we need to do is pass it through, I think. So we have that on entity, but we actually are going to have to add it to blue key as well. Map block. Yeah, we'll have to do on all of them. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that one. Positional argument. It doesn't like it coming after that. So I'll have to play with this bit a little bit, but we have just a few minutes. I do want to wrap it up because I don't want to run over. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Like I said, I will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time if you want to watch more adventures in Chip's Challenge. I also do want to open the floor up to the community. If anybody else is working on a game, for CircuitPython Day or over the next weekend or week or so, feel free to share it. I'd love to play games that other people create. I'd love to share them with folks on the stream or play them on the stream if that's something that you're interested in. So yeah, if anybody else is working on games, feel free to ping me, let me know. I'm super stoked. I'd be happy to play with them and check them out and all that stuff. Maker Melissa's stream is coming up next with the Matrix Portal. This is the link I'll drop in the Discord to that, as well as on the YouTube on my side here. So definitely check that out, folks. And I will leave you with just a bid farewell and a happy CircuitPython Day to all. Thanks.